From occupied Ramallah, our correspondent Mona Kandil joins us. We also have Muti Abu Musaba, who's a Palestinian political activist, joining us from Gaza City. All right, Mona, first over to you. What do you have for us?
Well, as Palestinians today are commemorating their catastrophe, the Nakba, that took place exactly 75 years ago in 1948, when about 700,000 Palestinians were expelled out from their homes and from their lands by Jewish militias in order to make way for Jewish immigrants to come to the Palestinian areas and to establish what's known today as Israel. Despite the painful memories, despite the statements, let's say, and the sayings when the Israeli officials and ministers have so long claimed that the elderly would die and the young generation would forget about their homeland. Today, Palestinians took to the streets across the occupied West Bank to send a clear message that they are still adherent to their right of return, that they are still adherent to their choice of resistance in order to bring the Israeli occupation to an end. This morning, the Israeli forces raided Nablus City Askar refugee camp, reminding the Palestinians again, Palestinians in the refugee camp of Askar in Nablus, that they are living under occupation. They killed 22-year-old Saleh Sabra from Nablus, from Askar refugee camp. The Israelis were there in order to take the measurement of the home of the son of Palestinian Abdel Fattah Kharwashi, this Palestinian martyr who was killed by the Israeli forces for carrying out a shooting that led to the killing of Israeli settlers back in February. So every day the Israelis continue to remind the Palestinians that they are still living under occupation, that the aggression and crimes against them will continue, that the Israelis will do their utmost to keep the Palestinians living in refugee camps. We are speaking about 5 million maybe or more Palestinian refugees are scattered in the refugee camps in the West Bank, in Gaza Strip, in Al-Quds, in Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, as well as in many countries around the world. But they are still adherent, they are still hoping that one day will come and they will return back to their homes and their lands that were occupied in 1948. We have to mention also that even the Palestinians who are still living in the lands that were occupied in 1948 and the word claims as Israel, they are suffering from discrimination. They are not living normal life. They are treated as Palestinians and not the real owners of the land.
Musaba, if we are to take a look at I guess, strides that Palestinians have made over the years and decades, when it comes to the recognition of Nakba, that has definitely increased in terms of the world recognition and the solidarity. But I'm wondering, and I ask you whether we have seen Israel digress, or has it further advanced its violations of Palestinians in order to get a gauge as to what is giving Israel that impunity to just continue with the atrocities as it executes on Palestinian lands?
Yes, first of all, thanks for having me. As you have mentioned, that the Palestinian people all over the world, actually, supported by all of the people worldwide, actually, are marking the 75th anniversary of the Nakba. This anniversary is considered one of the most important anniversaries for the Palestinian people as a whole, in order to remind the whole world that there is still a Palestinian people occupied, is still suffering under the ongoing and the perpetual Israeli crimes committed against the Palestinian people. Actually, the Nakba of the Palestinian people and the catastrophe of the Palestinian people, unfortunately, hasn't ended in 1948. The Nakba is still continued because the same kind of killing, the mass killing and the genocide, the same mentality that committed those crimes in 1948 is still the same for the Israeli occupation. This what explains and interprets this kind of the killing practiced against the Palestinian people and the genocide practiced. And what happened actually in Hawara a couple of months ago actually presented a clear message and presented blatant evidence that the same mentality that committed those crimes in 1948 is still the same inside the Israeli occupation, that still drives the Israeli attitude when it comes to the Palestinian people. This anniversary, the anniversary of the Nakba, the 75th anniversary of the Nakba for the Palestinian people this year is unlike any precedented years, as you know, because the Palestinian people and the suffering of the Palestinian people has amplified, has exacerbated over the ongoing and the relentless Israeli measures taken against the Palestinian people. We all are witnessing how the Israeli occupation is cementing its grip on the Palestinian people, either when it comes to the killing and the bloodshedding of the Palestinian people, or when it comes to the expelling of the Palestinian people, or on the other side, when it comes to the way they are just pushing the Palestinians to leave their lands. So all this kind of persecution practiced against the Palestinian people, it's the same, it's all different sides of the Nakba itself. It's the consequences, the normal consequences of the Nakba itself, that the Palestinian people is still paying that kind of consequences and still suffering this continuous and perpetual Nakba. What we are witnessing nowadays when it comes to the Israeli occupation, we can see clearly how the Israeli occupation today, despite all this kind of propaganda practice in order to cover or to overcome and to jump over what really happened during the Nakba in 1948, it still reminds the whole world that the real face of the Israeli occupation is the brutal face. This is the reality of the Israeli occupation, and no matter what the Israeli propaganda was intended to do or to cover this kind of the abhorrent face of the Israeli occupation, it would never succeed to hide the reality of the Israeli occupation, which is this abhorrent occupation was totally established on the rubbles of the Palestinian people, the rubbles of the Palestinian cities and neighborhoods and villages, after committing mass killing and mass atrocities against the Palestinian people. No one can forget what really happened in the Nakba. Not the Palestinian people only, but on the other hand, all free people worldwide. Those realities and the reality about what really happened and took place regarding those atrocities would never be forgotten or forgiven from the Palestinian people. Because when it comes to the Palestinian people, today we have more than 7 million Palestinian refugees scattered worldwide, waiting for the day to return to their houses. This kind of suffering, this kind of the real suffering of the Palestinian people, what really caused this suffering is the Israeli occupation. Without having the Israeli occupation, the Palestinian people would live peacefully, dignity and freedom inside their houses, inside their lands, inside their towns. So no one can deny that. This anniversary, especially in these moments, and I think that it's not a matter of a coincidence that the last aggression waged against Gaza Strip, which has ended 2 days ago, came in order to remind the whole world that the Nakba is still continuous. The Nakba is still continued against the Palestinian people, and the mass killing and the shelling and this kind of the oppressing the Palestinian people is still continued. Okay. What we have witnessed in the last aggression is a tiny part of what the Palestinian people as a whole has been living under and subjugated to over the last 75 years in a row.
Thank you for that, Muti Abu Musaba, Palestinian political activist from Gaza City. We appreciate your comments.